Today's video is brought to you by our awesome sponsor, Card Kingdom. You can get all the Dominaria United cards you need and help support the show over at cardkingdom.com/mtggoldfish. Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and today we are wrapping up our top 10 videos for Dominaria United. We're counting down the top 10 cards from DMU for Modern, and of course, joining me to do that today is Crim. Crim, welcome. How are you today?
I'm great. Happy to close it out to see with what cards we hope break it into Modern Horizons. Modern. Yeah.
Yeah, so this set has some good Modern cards, although it is a Modern Horizons format, and Modern Horizons pretty busted. No standard set's going to keep up with that. I feel pretty confident of, like, the top 5 cards, I think, on our list. I'm feeling pretty good about the top 4, top 5, somewhere in there. The bottom 5, a little bit more speculative, maybe, but we'll see. We'll see. You never know what'll happen in a big format like Modern. So, like usual, Crim and I each made a list. We mashed our list together. A couple of cards that we had didn't actually make the list. You can see our complete list over at mtggoldfish.com in the article we got over there. For me, the 2 cards that didn't quite make it in, Anointed Peacekeeper. Probably sounds weird. I like that it's good against Urza's Saga, though. And then Weatherlight completed. Crim, I think you just had one card that missed out on our combined list. What was your one that didn't make it?
Just Rona's Vortex. That's it.
Oh, yeah, Rona's Vortex, I do like. It just missed out on my top 10, but it was on all of our other top 10 lists, so you've already heard about that one. If you haven't heard about it, watch yesterday's video, or the video before that, where we talked about Rona's Vortex. Anyway, let's get into it. Let's count down our top 10 cards. Coming in at number 10 on our list, we got a little bit of a speculative pick. This is a card I've heard a lot of people talking about for Modern. I'm not 100% sure if it's going to be good enough or not. I think people are going to try it at least, and that's Founding the Third Path, a new uncommon saga, one of the read-ahead sagas. Lower counter 1 lets you cast an instant or sorcery, mana value 2 or less from your hand for free. Lower counter 2, mill someone for 4 cards. Lower counter 3 lets you Snapcaster, essentially. Exile an instant or sorcery from your graveyard, you copy it, you can cast the copy. So I think the argument for this card in Modern is there's 2. I think the best one is it works really well with expressive iterations, ledger shredders. If you cast a Founding of the Third Path and then cast a free spell from your hand, that's 2 spells, so it's triggering ledger shredder, and then you can mill yourself to fuel your delve spells, your Murktide regents. What you cut from something like Is It Murktide? That's going to be the hard part with this card. Yeah. The other place that I think this has a more likely home, but not as good of a home, is probably Mill. Mill has some powerful 2 mana or less cards that you can flash back, and this also mills 4, which is a nice little bonus, and you can cast something for free when you cast it. So I think maybe Mill would be another place that this could actually have a home. Whether or not this card sticks long term, I don't know, but I do think for the immediate future after set release, I would be surprised if we didn't see people messing around with and trying this card to see how good it actually is in Modern. But what do you think about this one, Crim? Any merit to Founding the Third Path in Modern?
This set has actually pretty powerful uncommons, so I wouldn't be surprised if a good amount of them make it in. This is the main thing. You actually point out the one deck that I thought I'd go in, because I think that it would be Mill. I don't know of another deck that would want this. Like, I don't think blue-red cares, right? Like blue-red, it could work in there, but like blue-red's already got so many good cards. So yeah, I don't think it's going to want to play this. But I do think Mill could definitely play this. Being able to go play this and then like glimpse the unthinkable right from your hand. And then, like back it up with another Mill. And then if you're able to like squeeze out like a Tasha's Hideous Laughter before the 3rd chapter goes off, that's the one thing that's really nice. It does not care the value, CMC value of this instant or sorcery you're casting from your yard. So, and this seems really good at Mill.
Even if you just cast your Glimpse again, it's not bad. Like, free Glimpse, mill 4, recast the Glimpse. That's like 24 cards milled or something with only spending 2 of your own cards, which, even that's probably good enough. So, yeah, I think Mill's the most likely home, but who knows? Maybe it's even a little better than that. But let's keep moving on. Number 9 on our list. We have one that you had on your list, Crim. A card that I really like, although Modern's just so strong. I don't know if it can break in or not. And that's the Raven Man. Interesting payoff for some sort of discard style deck. You get to make some bird tokens. You can pay for a tap. It makes someone discard. What do you think about the Raven Man in Modern, Crim?
Okay, this is only for 8-rack players who are still holding it down, because that's it. That's it. Like there's obviously a lot of sweet discard decks and whatnot in Modern. So if you're gonna play a discard deck, I think this goes in it.
I will say,
as simple as that.
The thing I like, now that I'm thinking about how this card would work in an 8-rack deck, is 8-racks often in a Snaring Bridge deck. And the birds, 1/1s work really well with Ensnaring Bridge, because you make 1/1s, you draw a card for the turn, you can attack with your creatures, and you play your card so your opponent can't attack with anything. So, I don't know. Is that going to be enough to make it? I'm still not 100% sure, but it does seem intriguing for some sort of 8-rack style where you're going to be getting the bird every turn, and then I guess, like, in a pinch, you activate its ability 4 to discard a single card at sorcery speed. Not exciting, but if you have nothing else going on, I mean, it makes your opponent discard, make sure they're empty-handed for your racks or whatever. So, all right, I can see trying it in the rack at least.
The only reason I'm curious, I'm so curious, why is the ability not not instant speed? Why only activate at sorcery? Being able to lock someone out at their upkeep, or their draw step is sick.
Would it have to be more than 4? Would 4 be too aggressive for locking someone?
You're playing a 2/1. You gotta,
yeah. I guess it does die to gut shot, so.
There's literally everything, right? So, a stiff breeze should be able to push the Raven Man over. All I'm asking for is that, come on, you gotta give me a little bit more power, but, regardless, I think Raven Man could be in the rack. It could be fun. That's about it.
I think this is where you see the downside of showing up in a standard set rather than a Modern Horizon set. If it was a Modern Horizon set, maybe you do it, let you activate it instant speed, or the ability is a lot cheaper. But when you got to put it through standard and, all the arena players are playing with it, you got to make sure that, that it's not too miserable.
It's with how much more miserable, whatever. It's a discard deck.
All right, let's move on. Next on our list, number 8. We got a card that I'm warming up to, Terra Sunder. 2 mana naturalized, but it exiles. And then if you kick it for 2 more mana, you get rid of any non-land permanent. So 4 mana to exile any non-land permanent. Kind of a lot in Modern. The thing that sold me on this card maybe having potential is really the exile mode. There's a couple of things in specific that can be very annoying that are artifacts and or enchantments that you really need to exile. One big one is Caldera Complete. Yep. Very difficult to deal with because it's indestructible. Terra Sunder is 2 mana, get rid of it, which is a nice upside. Also, there's value to exiling Urza Saga forever because you got decks that are Ren and 6ing it back into play or whatever shenanigans. So that's another one. So this is 2 mana snipe a Urza Saga before it wrecks you, gets rid of the Caldera Complete. I don't think this is a main deck card, but I think it could be a good sideboard option. And then you get the flexibility that even though 4 mana isn't efficient, it can snag a Teferi or a Murktide Region or some big non-creature spell if you manage to kick it. But what do you think?
I mean, it exiles all of Hammer Time. Right?
Yeah.
The entire, pretty much
true.
The entire deck, except for and if you need to, obviously, then 4 mana, it's nice to have the flexibility. Yeah, you pay a little bit more, but it is still exile target non-land permanent.
Yeah.
That's still worth something, right? But you can exile Sigarda's Aid, Hammer Time is popular, and you could exile almost that entire deck. The only things that it might miss are are there even any enchantments outside of that? I guess there's a few in Yorion Blink and whatnot. But yeah, there's a lot you could do with this. You can hit an Amulet Titan, which gets rid of the Dryad as well. So I don't know. I really like this card. And it took me a second to think it over, but then I thought about how good that kicker is. So even though it's expensive, it's nice to have.
It's kind of oddly like a weird Rona's Vortex if you kick it.
Yeah.
When it kind of actually does something very similar. That's the second uncommon from the set, that if you have 4 mana, you just get rid of anything forever, which is kind of powerful. But all right, let's keep moving forward. We got a Control All-Star, perhaps temporary lockdown, a mass portable hole, getting rid of every cheap thing for just 3 mana. Crim, what are you imagining with this one in the Modern format?
I am in love with this card. It is so aggressively costed. It's only 3 mana, and it gets rid of so many things. Outside of Murktide Regent and a Prime Time, Like, this hits all, actually, like, all of Hammer Time's creatures and permanents, except for, like, Nettle, Cyst, and Cauldron Complete. It literally just bodies their entire deck. like, oh my god. And then, of course, there's, like, the burn decks. They've got all their threats that you could. Like, there's just so many permanents that are 2 mana or less. It gets rid of Wrenn and 6, right? Like, This is sweet. I really like this card. And it comes down at 3 mana, so it's not a huge sink.
Yeah, it's only 3 mana, which is super efficient. It gets rid of all that stuff you were talking about. Wrecks Hammer Time. Wrecks a lot of aggro decks where this is just naturally going to hit most of their creatures. Good against, like, annoying stuff that otherwise you can't deal with, like the Asmore food deck that's got all these random artifacts on the battlefield. Or if you run into, occasionally run into Lantern Control still, that's still just doing all their Lantern Control stuff, and this just kind of gets them there. Gets rid of the Rhinos against the Cascade decks, which is nice, and it gets rid of them forever. Only downside is...
majority of the Golgari, like, Yawgmoth combo deck, right? Like, it gets rid of almost all of that, so...
The only downside is temporary is fitting in Modern because there's just like so much flexible. We were just talking about a very flexible removal spell as our last card, but there are a lot of things that can kill this between March Otherworldly, like Beseiju, Assassin's Trophy, Prismatic Ending. So there's many ways to get rid of this, but I think that it's so cheap that's okay. Like, even if this is a temporary lockdown and not permanently getting rid of those cards, it's only 3 mana and you're probably getting some ridiculous X for 1 out of it, which I still think makes this a pretty good card in a lot of different matchups.
Right. Like, let's say if they go for like a Prismatic Ending, they're almost like spending their whole turn, right?
Yeah.
Like, when you think about mana costs, like, they're spending their whole turn. The only thing that's getting rid of this, like an Assassin's Trophy, a Beseiju, or whatever, but like, other than that, it's like usually going to cost them a lot.
And also gets like almost every hate card. Void Mirrors, Chalice of the Voids, like, you name a hate card. If those things are troubling you, this is going to temporarily lock them all down. So, all right, let's keep moving forward. Next up, we got a card that, boy, I've been going back and forth on this one and how good this card is. I know you got it on your list, Crim. I've had it on my list. I took it off my list. I don't know what I think about this card. Karn's Silex, 3 mana legendary artifact, comes into play tapped, shuts down life ping abilities, and then works like a Pernicious Deeds, essentially, where you can pay X and sack it and exile everything of that mana value or less, only as a sorcery. Crim, what are you thinking about this one in the Modern format?
Karn the Great Creator is going to loop this a lot. I really like Karn the Great Creator with this. Any deck that plays the Great Creator is going to immediately play this. You can play one in the board. You can play it in the main. It shuts down all the annoying Phyrexian mana stuff. And yeah, like, you can't pay life to do, like, use abilities and cast spells. That's oddly kind of big. And just for its passive, but that's not even accounting for the fact that it blows up everything X or less, as opposed to like an engineered explosive, right?
Yep. It only gets
explosive
X,
exactly. It only gets X. This is X or less. This is so good. And specifically the fact that it exiles itself is huge, because if put it in the graveyard, you can't get it with Karn. You gotta like do the loop of like Relic of Progenitus, target yourself, put it in the yard. This is just gonna exile itself. So Karn, it can grab it right away again. It's so good.
I do like that. I hadn't really... Okay, so I think you sold me on this with the Karn getting it from exile. My thinking was, okay, definitely play a copy in the sideboard to snag with my Karn, but I hadn't really went to the next level of then like, okay, I can get it back with Karn and keep doing that, which is pretty sweet. Also, like, it does hit on fetch lands, which is nice. Like, your opponents can't crack their fetch land. I guess you wouldn't be able to crack your fetch lands, but most Karn decks are not necessarily super fetch heavy anyway. They're Tron-style decks or mono-colored prison-style decks. So I think that that's kind of fine that you're hating on your opponent's mana. And then the exile ability, I like that it gets rid of all the Urza Saga tokens, which is something you see people dedicating sideboard slots to. Like, if you can't deal with the constructs from an Urza Saga, they're probably just going to beat you. And this does just wipe them away for, well, slowly, I guess, because you got to wait for it to untap. But still, like, it's 0 mana to exile all the stuff with mana value X or less. So that is a cheap way to keep the Urza Saga tokens off the battlefield. And then it goes to exile. So if they ever rebuild and do it again, well, you get it back with your Karn and do it again. So I think you sold me on this one. I think this card actually could be pretty good in Modern.
Yeah, like, it seems at its best in Modern, so I'm excited to see what comes of it.
Let's move on. Number 5 on our list. We got Belmore Battle Mage Captain, a 2-drop spell slinger prowess style card. Crim, what are you thinking about this one in Modern?
I mean, for a while, Modern had, Lava Dart, blue-red, kind of like actual prowess aggro. Now, I think it's got a Lord. I think this is a prowess Lord, which is exactly what the deck could use. And, that deck can kill you pretty quick, which it needs to, because I don't think it wins in the late game ever. But, I think that if you are to play a blue-red prowess style deck, you just got a Lord, and this card on its own is very nicely statted, being a 1/3. So I like it. It doesn't dodge ball, but not many things do. So this is just a very good Magic card and a cheap cost for it is so cheap for what it does. It is only blue and a red. I love this card.
This card can be especially scary in Modern just because Modern has the cheapest spells, and even the free spells. Is It Prowess at one point was a legit tier deck. It's kind of fallen off recently. I don't see it nearly as much as I used to. Everyone's playing the Murktide version now and the Ledger Shredder versions, but I don't see any reason why you couldn't go back to a more Prowessy version, because if you can play your Swift Spears and Soulscar Mage and Sprite Dragons and follow it up with this, and then just cast your Gut Shot into Lava Dart, into Flashback Lava Dart, into Mutagenic Growth, it's just going to kill people on turn 3 really consistently with a good draw, I think. There's so Manamorphose, you got Manamorphoses for even more cheap spells. It's just so easy to chain spells together in Modern that it seems like this is just built to make people die in the Modern format, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a Prowess deck make a resurgence, more or less because of Balmor, really.
Yeah. And again, before, it used to be that you could just chump block a lot of the beefed up things, but now they get trample with Battlemore on the board. So
yeah, that was your one out, is put your creature in front of the big Soulscar Mage, but now Balmor doesn't even let you do that. So yeah, this card, frightening uncommon. Well, let's keep moving on. Number 4 on our list, we got a card that I think is sneaky good in Modern, which is Leyline Binding. The Flash Domain Oblivion Ring style effect can get as low as 1 mana in a 5-color deck. So on level 1, it works well in all these money pile decks. You already got these Triome 5-color. You got fetch lands getting Triomes. It's so, you have all the basic land types on turn 2 very consistently in Modern. That ain't no thing. And then Leyline is just a 1 mana removal spell that gets rid of anything that you want to. But then I think there's a next level that makes this even better. And that level is, for one, it dodges a lot of the things that can kill it. Prismatic Ending can never kill it. Yep. March Otherworldly Light is a ridiculous amount of mana to kill it. So this dodges some of the hate. And then the next level is Cascade's really popular. And Cascade has this weird deck building dichotomy where you gotta play stuff that costs more than 3 mana or else you ruin your Cascades. So this is a great removal spell for those decks, like a Living End style deck or a Rhino style deck, because it's gonna cost 1 or 2 mana most of the time, but it's actually too expensive to ruin your Cascade. So I think it goes even further up in value. And decks that have these weird mana requirements because of things like Cascade, or Calibrated Blast. Maybe Calibrated Blast pays this out of their sideboard because it's 6 mana. If you blast into it, it's not the end of the world, but technically you're casting it for 1 mana. So I love all the things this card can do in Modern. But Crim, why don't you tell us what you think about it?
I mean, yeah, exactly those reasons, right? This is going to be, oh my God, you can cast this for 1 mana.
1 mana.
At a point. The Triumph comes in tapped, that's fine. Who cares? Because you only have to pay 1. And you're on turn 2, right? That is absurd. So this card is so good. And the fact that, I don't even know, do people still play Inquisition? I guess it doesn't get Inquisitioned. But there's also that one other thing. Because Death's Shadow is still a thing, right? So, but they mostly just play Thoughtseize now. But whatever. The point here is, I think this card is just so good. It is so efficient for 1 mana with Flash. I thoroughly love this card. So.
And having Flash is huge in Modern because you have Hammer Time decks that are flashing in their hammer and one-shotting you. And Oblivion Ring is going to do literally nothing against that. You are going to die. A Prismatic Ending is not going to do anything against that. You're going to die. This being an instant lets you snipe the creature that your opponent puts a hammer on her. You have Amulet Titan decks that haste in the Titan and then hit you with it and get all the lands. This deals with the Titan before it gets the attack in. So having Flash, the instant speed aspect, is so important to Modern, I think.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to our top 3. And our top 3 is actually all very similar. We have a whole cycle of lords coming in Dominaria United. Our top 3 cards are our lords. And honestly, I almost just put all these cards together because I think you can really debate which one is best. I have no idea. Like, I think all 3 of these cards are huge for Modern. Very good in Modern. Gonna see a lot in play in Modern. So if you want to argue about which one should be number 1, which one number 2, which one number 3, I got no idea. But number 3, we got Leaf Crown Visionary, the Elf Lord. And this is exactly what Elves wants. Elves are really good at making mana.
Leaf Crown Dryad, right?
Leaf Crown Dryad, yes. You bestow it into your elf deck. And
okay, cool. Seth originally had that on the slide. And I'm like,
there was a little typo. But yeah, this card is like, it's so absurd for elves. Because if you think about elves, they make so much mana. Modern elves in specific, you got Heritage Druid making all kinds of mana with their creatures that are untapping. So even though you got to pay 1 mana to draw a card when you cast an elf, elves are the tribe that doesn't care about mana because it makes so much mana. So this being a lord that is also like a bad glimpse the unthinkable type of fact that costs you a bit of mana, this is going to be so good. I think this is just like an auto include
a bad
in every
glimpse the
elf.
Unthinkable.
Yeah, it's pretty bad because you got to pay mana or glimpse of nature rather, not glimpse the it's a very bad glimpse the unthinkable. But it's also a
glimpse
bad
of nature.
But
I knew what you meant. Yeah.
But I think you just auto include this in elves. But what do you think about this one, Crim?
I love that elves now just literally have every elf is a lord. Right? Like they're all lords.
And they all make mana.
Yeah. So at this point, we've just now make it so that you assume any elf that is followed up is going to be a lord effect. It's just all like you used to be able to play around it, be like, oh, maybe they don't have a lord effect. They will always have a lord effect now. So this card is very good for elves, but it is the lowest on my lord ranks of the 3 from this set because
speaking of all lords, number 2 on our list and next on our Nord list, we have a tribe that I think literally could build a modern deck where every one of their creatures was lords if they wanted to, which is our new Merfolk Lord, Hexcatcher. Not saying that first word because Crim will laugh at me.
Vidalian.
It's a pretty good one though. Turn your creatures into curse catchers and you can flash it and get people by surprise. I know you love this one, Crim. Why don't you tell us about it?
So this is my number 1 ranked lord of the 3 because we've seen Merfolk take down tournaments. Merfolk has won tons of tournaments. It's shown that it has the chance to just get there on the back of just getting people off their mana base, right? Spreading seas, seas claim, things like that, right? And now you have another lord effect. So now they, just like elves, every creature they play will have a lord a lord effect attached to it. This one being able to flash and allow you to turn your like rando like Merfolk into like an actual like force spike, but for non-creature spells, that's big. That's huge. This card is so good. I mean, I thoroughly love all these lord effects, so I think they're gonna just completely. This one has to be my favorite lord because Merfolk has already proven time and time and again they are the one honest tribal magic that's still around in Modern.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is really good at Merfolk. My only tiny catch is we kind of have 2 versions of Merfolk now. I don't know if you've seen the Sevulin deck, which is like kind of Merfolky, but also civilian, whatever. But it's kind of Merfolky, but it's also like fairies. It's like a mixture of those things. It's not like traditional Merfolk. So I don't think it fits in that deck because that's not really a Merfolk. Yeah, that's not really a Merfolk Lord deck. But in the traditional Merfolk deck, you have Lord of Atlantis Master, Pearl Trident. I think those are 1 and 2 because of Island Walk. And then I think Hexcatcher's number 3 on the list. So that is the next Lord. And then you can fill it out with even more Lords if you want to. You can go into green for Lords. You can play Marrow Regery. There's so many. You really could play like 24 Lords in your deck if you wanted to. So it'll be interesting to see. I think this does solve some of Merfolk's problems, which is getting blown out by Wrath and removal. I think that the Curse Catcher ability, being attached to a Lord, does help there. It's not going to stop a Supreme Verdict, but it is going to slow down Anger of the Gods and so forth. So we'll see. I think this is definitely an auto-include in Modern Merfolk, and maybe this brings Modern Merfolk back up a tier or 2. It's kind of in recent years fallen down a little bit in the Modern Horizons era, but I think that maybe this is what brings it back to some extent.
Yeah. I mean, dude, Merfolk is out there doing work right now. I actually think Merfolk is kind of fun. The games, though, are never, ever, they're never like balanced or like a good back and forth. They're just blowouts one way or the other.
You
get blown out, or or your opponent has all islands and can't do anything and they're dead.
That's the Merfolk way. Well, number one on my list is the Goblin Lord, Runveld Hordemaster. And the reason I have this one ranked number one is I think that goblins are actually the best current tribe out of the tribes that were supported with Lords and Dominaria United in Modern. And this works really well with what goblins want to do, because goblin decks tend to be kind of oddly sacrifice-based, playing like Skirk Prospectors and other sacrifice effects. So this works really well with those effects. When your stuff dies, you get to exile your cards. If it's goblins, you get to cast them. Plus, almost like we were talking about with our Merfolk Lord, it's wrath protection in a weird way. Hexcatcher slows down wraths with a counter ability. Hordemaster lets you fight through the wraths, because if your stuff dies, you get to exile a bunch of stuff and you just rebuild your board the next turn. So I think this is maybe the best Goblin Lord that has ever been printed. Warmaster, the haste one, is also very, very good. But I think discounting, this is either the first or second best, and I think this does exactly what a modern Goblin deck wants to do. But what do you think about this one, Crim?
I mean, I like it for goblins. I think it's very good. Like it's obviously gonna fit right in, and it comes down on like, as opposed to like the 3-drop lords is what you're used to from goblins. All these lords are coming down on turn 2. Elves is usually always a turn 2 lord, but like, and same with Merfolk, but like goblin, you usually expect it around 3 mana. Mm-hmm. And they usually come with some form of like haste attached to something else. This is a very good goblin lord. I just only rank it lower than the Merfolk one because, again, Merfolk has taken down tournaments and it's usually proven the best results. So I assume that one is.
Goblins have taken down tournaments too. Goblins are good.
I think they're good. They are very good. But I feel like Merfolk has historically won way more in Modern. That's why I have it ranked over that.
All right, Crim, I challenge you, once Dominaria United releases, me and you, mano y mano, modern battle, me on goblins, you on Merfolk, and we'll settle this once and for all.
Goblins will beat Merfolk because Merfolk do not beat anybody that is...
That's why I made this challenge. I knew that I would win, so that's why I offered this.
It's not even a close game, dude.
So is that a yes?
Yeah, sure. You want to play against Sparky? Is that what's going on here? What am I gonna do? Counter all your non-creature spells? Sick.
Yeah. Would you like to sack your Merfolk to counter all my literally 0 non-creature spells? You could get my Ether Vial maybe on turn 1.
Maybe.
Anyway, on that note, that brings us to the end of our top 10 Dominaria United cards. And honestly, like I said before, if we want to put the Merfolk Lord number 1, I'm not going to quibble with that. I honestly don't know. I think all 3 Lords, and then also Leyline Binding, for me, those are the big 4 from this set. The 3 Lords and Leyline Binding, those are the cards I'm really confident are going to have a big impact on Modern. The rest, and you can put them in any order that you want to. Even if you put Leyline Binding number 1, I even wouldn't argue too hard against that because I think that card's going to be really good. So order the top 4 however you want to, and I will sign off on it. The bottom 6, those are the ones that I think we're going to see some of those do things, but those are more the... Silex is good, but I think that's probably going to be like a 1 of sideboard Karn target type good rather than a like 4 of main deck Lord type good, which is kind of a different level of good maybe. Fair. But the bottom of the list is where I think it's a little more speculative, although you did sell me on the possibilities of Silex. But anyway, let us know what you think. You've heard what we think about Modern. You heard what we think about Standard and Pioneer. Check out those videos if you hadn't. And coming soon, you're going to get to see us playing some of these cards. Gameplay will be coming up shortly now that the set is about to drop. So thanks for watching, everyone. Crim, thanks for hanging out and doing these videos. It's always fun.
Thanks for having me.
And we will be back, I guess, in a couple of months when we get the Brothers War to count down the best cards from that set. So until then, everyone, have a blast with Dominaria United. Thanks for watching, and we will talk to you soon.